The Biden administration says there's no plan for direct US intervention in Ukraine if Russia starts using chemical weapons against civilians. Let's go to our US correspondent, Annalise Nielsen, live from Washington, D.C. Annalise, what's the latest response been from the White House?
Well, Pete, we heard a response from Press Secretary Jen Psaki about this because this has raised as a concern yesterday that there was going to be the use of chemical weapons, especially against civilians, was the potential intelligence that the United States shared by Russians against Ukrainian citizens. Now, the fear is that Russians would then turn this around and accuse Ukrainians of using chemical weapons and use that as a false flag effort to then redouble their efforts of the invasion of Ukraine. And so this is where this fear has come from. But now the question's been raised about what would the US response be if that were the case? And what we've heard from the Biden administration is there's been no change to their policy about not having US troops intervening in the Ukraine conflict.
Would President Biden let a chemical weapons attack in Ukraine go unanswered by the United States?
We have not let anything go unanswered that President Putin has done to date. We have not let anything go unanswered to date, any steps that President Putin has taken to date. What that would look like, I can't give you an assessment of that from here at this point.
Meanwhile, Annalise, the Vice President Kamala Harris has met with the Polish president.
She's been dispatched to Europe to try and shore up support among NATO allies especially, but specifically with Poland, the issue was that they'd requested that the US help backfill their supply of jets if they in turn gave jets to Ukraine. And the logic behind that was that their more Soviet-style jets are the ones that the Ukraine Air Force would be used to and would be able to defend their airspace. But while the Biden administration had all but green-lighted it on Sunday with the Secretary of State saying it was a good option, then we've had the Pentagon pour cold water on it and say that there's no logistical way to pull it off, and it would also come too close to a direct intervention by US forces in Ukraine. And this has been quite the turnaround for Poland. So Vice President Kamala Harris was there to smooth that over. But at the same time, she was asked about what the US is going to do to try to help with the flow of refugees, I should say. And that's been a concern from the US side. They've just had a huge influx of refugees from Afghanistan. And so there isn't a huge appetite from the left in particular for helping Ukraine refugees in the United States. And this was the response from Kamala Harris.
And if you asked the United States to specifically accept more refugees?
Okay. A friend in need is a friend indeed.
Okay, I can first. Okay, so this time. Szanowna pani redaktor.
Madam, the situation is very complex.
As you can imagine, Republicans have been making hay of this, saying that it's no laughing matter. At the same time, we've also heard Kamala Harris in that press conference say that the US will support pursuing Russia for war crimes in Ukraine.
Annalise Nielsen, live from Washington, D.C. Thank you, Annalise. We'll talk to you again next hour.